just a minute and we will start my podcast interview on my career and how students can learn from my experience as a strategy consultant as well as a freelance business strategy consultant with over 10 years of experience working for leading strategy consulting firms as well as private equity firms and multinational businesses.
Hello.
Hello.
Great as a startup. So we are working at a home sort of a structure
Don't
where
worry,
our
don't
office
worry.
is
I
set.
worked for startups as well, so I know how it is. You need to wear many hats at the same time, or it's a bit
Yeah,
more unstructured than a corporate environment in any sense, right?
yeah, it is. It is.
I
All
want,
right. So shall we get started then?
yeah,
Can you tell us about your background and experience?
sure. So I'm a freelance business strategy consultant with more than 10 years of experience. I worked for leading strategy consulting firms, PE firms, multinational business, but also startups and small and medium enterprises. I have started my journey at a leading strategy consulting firm in London, where my main projects were about entry market strategy, go to market strategy, competitive analysis for companies in a wide variety of industries, communications, media, advertising, technology, financial services. After 5 years, then I've been working for a leading travel technology company in always in London, where my main responsibility as a business strategy senior manager was to lead the development of the mobile applications. And after then, I started my career as a freelance business strategy consultant. So I worked for multiple companies for a couple of years, always in the strategy consulting area. But I've also worked for private equity firms and pricing strategy consulting firms. And in after a couple of years there, I've taken a contract which was approximately 2 years long, where I worked for a leading advertising and marketing technology company. Um, I was there hired initially as a business strategy consultant, then I've been extended as an interim M&A director, and then finally I've been working as a chief of staff of the global chief operations officer, chief technology officer, and chief HR officer. So a person that had three very senior roles into one. And basically with my latest engagement, I have accumulated more than 10 years of experience working for multinational companies, strategy consulting firms, and private equity firms.
That's wonderful. I think you have a lot of experience within consulting itself across multiple domains. That's great. I think that's a very great skill set and highly applicable, right, in
Cool.
any sector.
Absolutely.
All right. So moving on to maybe talk about your current role, can you describe your role and what are the typical tasks in it?
Yeah, sure. So as a freelance business strategy consultant and recently as a chief of staff, my role is the one of a trusted advisor to very senior stakeholders in the company, usually sitting in the C-suite, right? So my role is to gather the intelligence about a wide variety of topics and come up with recommendations in order to advise the C-suite on how to best pursue a certain activity or initiative. And the topics can be very varied. It can be, what are competitors doing, and hence what can we do in order to leapfrog the competition. It can be how can we expand in a new market, or what disruptive startup is revolutionizing the client I'm working for, or what offering, which we call unique value propositions, should we develop for our clients, to, topics like what can we do in order to improve our internal operations, or also preparing the company for entry in a new market. So a wide variety of activities and tasks on my current position.
Perfect. And among these activities, which ones do you look forward to, and
Mm.
which ones are your least favorite?
Yeah, so my favorite tasks are, those that deal with dynamics, and in particular with competitive dynamics, understanding what competitors are doing and what instead we can do in order to counteract their moves and leapfrog our competition. But I also enjoy a lot managing the communication, senior stakeholders, both the internal and the external stakeholders. So What I mean by internal activities is centralizing information and make it available to senior stakeholders in order for them to make decisions, or also to centralize information, make it presentable for investors and external stakeholders, and so on. What I mean by external communication is all the PR activities intended to elevate the reputation of a company, representing my client at an external conference, leading a flagship event, as well as organizing marketing activities and press releases. Those are activities that I really like. For the ones that I don't like a lot, let's say that as a freelance business strategy consultant, there are a lot of administrative tasks that I need to take care of. For instance, I need to take care of about my taxes through an accountant, be aware of the latest regulatory changes, and hence being on top of that. But in terms of the working activities that I don't like a lot, those are the mechanical ones. So the ones where there's not so much strategic thinking. And I can make a practical example. Like as a trusted advisor to the C-suite, I was trusted to be the person that led the onboarding and offboarding on a management incentive program that basically gave shares to the leadership in order to retain them, right? And every time a person was onboarded or offboarded, I had to take care about all the bureaucracy around that. Those kind of activities are not really my cup of tea.
That's a good point. All right, so moving on, what inspired you to pursue this career?
So I wish I had, something, I had already in mind when I was studying to be a strategy consultant. But the reality is that it happened. But just happened because I had in mind the three clear things that I wanted to reach my career. First of all, I wanted to have an international career, so travel internationally and acquire as many experiences as possible in different cultures. The second is that I wanted a job where my value would increase, would accrue as my experiences increase. And this is not something that is granted for every job. And then the third aspect was that I didn't want a job that locked me in a specific area. And strategy consulting, when I ended my university, was one of the area that ticked all these three boxes, and that's why I decided to start a career there. And once I was there, I decided to continue because I enjoyed the possibility of developing this strategic thinking and apply that also to other industries and other areas as well.
Right. Perfect. How would you describe the work-life balance in your role?
So currently, my work-life balance is very good because I think I have understood that what matters is reaching a a good long-term working arrangement, right? So putting in those 10 hours of work for one day does not have a positive impact on the second day and the third day and so on. And I think it's very important for all the students that are listening right now to understand and to make their employer understand that this is the most important thing, reaching a long-term sustainable working arrangement. Of course, there are periods where the extra time is to be put, but it should not be the rule. Of course, over my over 10 years of experience, my work-life balance has not always been ideal, right? Especially at the beginning of my career when I was working for this leading strategy consulting firm. What I have reflected afterwards that really annoyed me was not knowing in which day of the week there would have been a peak, of work, and hence the inability to plan my activities around that. In fact, now that I am a senior leader, what I try to do is when I'm aware that there's going to be a period of particular intense work, I communicate that with my team so that they can plan their extra activities or their family activities around that particular high workload.
I think generally when people hear about consulting, they are scared by the fact that you have extremely long hours.
Mm.
But generally, that is not the case, is what I've seen now. You have times, peak periods, but there are also times where you are not just doing 20 hours.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
it's
great.
important, it's
Uh,
important to know when that peak hours can be
mm,
or what periods can be, because it's understandable that there are periods where a higher workload is possible and happens. But if you know that in a particular week, the third day is going to be the ones where you're going to be working late, you can plan things around. The problem is when you don't know and you go in at 9 a.m. and you don't know what time you're going to finish, and hence you cannot plan the pickup of your kids, or even your gym time or your extra social activities. So that's, I think, where the problem comes.
few questions are about actually the application process.
Mhm.
I think freelance jobs are picking up, I would say, right? A lot of people are trying to explore these kind of avenues.
So what helped me during my application process? First of all, I think my researching skills and understanding, whenever you are applying for a position, you need to really understand what the position requires and do a lot of research about the company that is looking for that role. And in particular, I think it's important critical thinking. So understanding about all the sources you will find on the internet, which are the most reputable, which are the least, which are the independent sources. I don't know, like Glassdoor, which is something that I consult all the time whenever I do an application. And once you understand, whether the company is for you, whether the role is for you, then the second step is to really match your previous experiences with that role. Of course, being as quantitative as possible and as crisp as possible. And then the third advice that I feel to give to all the students listening is networking with people that have worked in that company. Now, understand that not every time that you do a single application, you can network with people at that company. But if you get from, to an interview stage and you have some time, it really makes a difference if you network with people on LinkedIn that have already worked there, can give you both an inside perspective about that company. They sometimes can give you some advice. And during the interview, if you quote, someone that has provided you with that information, it really shows that you went the extra mile. You really were committed, and you really wanted, to get into that company. So it really shows commitment and the willingness to go the extra mile to get to that job. So these three things, networking, researching, and trying to apply critical thinking are, I think, my distinguishing factors when you need to do an application.
When we say what set you apart from other candidates.
Yeah. So I think when you are competing with other people, it's hard to answer this question, first of all, because when you are competing against other people, you don't know usually who these people are. It can happen, and in my personal experience, it only happened during the assessment day I went to for my consulting job, where you are put against, let's say, other competitors, other candidates, even though they tell you that everyone can be hired. It is true that they look for some critical success factors. So you can also modify your attitude, or understand how to face that assessment day in such a way to have higher chances. But coming back to the question of what set me apart from other candidates, not knowing them, I can assume that it is, the fact that I have international experiences, so the fact that I worked across the UK, EMEA, I have had exposure to the US market and the Asia Pacific market. That really, I think, distinguished me from other candidates. The fact that I had a variety of experiences, such as, I worked for multinational companies, strategy consulting firms, private equity firms, but also startups and scale ups, and a variety of industries, which can be pharmaceutical, consumer goods, financial services, and that variety of industries as well as experiences made me a well-rounded professional that knows a bit about everything, like marketing, finance, commercial, HR, and so on. And I think that really is important when you climb the social and corporate ladder, because leaders look for people that have experiences and allow them to, districate, to move areas which are always interconnected. So having that variety of experiences really, I think, makes me standing out. And the third aspect, I think, is my hunger for growth. That I think really shows when I interact with interviewers, or when I do my social content on social media, or when I interact with the stakeholders inside the company. And I think in the long term that really stands out and differentiate candidates from others.
Wonderful. So the next question is, what are the key skills for success in this field and how to develop them?
Um, I think there are two aspects to this question. There are hard skills and soft skills. And actually, I talk about these in my social content. So if you want to hear more, I post both on on LinkedIn and Instagram under the business strategist. The hard skills are analysis, so understanding a topic in depth, and hence in this I would advise not only to practice Excel, but lately also data visualization tools. I'm talking about Power BI, Tableau, Zoho, but also online tools like Flourish is one of the latest ones. Um, there are definitely presentation skills, so PowerPoint, making information presentable. So definitely practice PowerPoint, but also lately how to use artificial intelligence to do presentations. And this is for the hard skills. But what really makes a strategy consultant stand out is the soft skills. And of all of these, I would say, first of all, communication. So be clear about what you are communicating, both when you are managing stakeholders upwards, as well as when you are managing your own team. There are thousands of books done on this topic. I also talk about this in my social content. For instance, there is the pyramid principle that says to be saying always the first as the first thing the conclusion of your analysis, and then after that the corroborating topics that validate that conclusion. And you can practice that in every communication, from emails to PowerPoint, to your daily communication with senior stakeholders and your direct reports. The second soft skill is definitely time management. So understanding what are the priorities and allocating time and resources accordingly. On these, I advise to use the urgent and important metrics. If you don't know about that, you can Google that. It's a very simple metrics that allows you to give priority to what is urgent and important first, important then, and so on and so forth. And then the third soft skill is stakeholder management. So understanding how to set the expectations, both upwards when you are managing people that are above your level. So usually the trick there is to under promise and over deliver, and also with your direct reports. If you know that there is a period of particularly high workload, be upfront, be clear about your expectations, and manage the people accordingly. um, yeah, so I think these are the two aspects I would work on if I really wanted to stand out as a new candidate in a strategy consulting firm.
In your opinion, what misconceptions exist about this role?
Okay, so if we talk about strategy consulting, I think the biggest misconception is that people usually join the strategy consulting for the lifestyle, right? That it gives, like the fancy restaurants you can go and dining, or the glamorous hotels where you can go and stay, which are part of the job. But I think the key motivation people should be joining strategy consulting firms is the possibility of developing a strategic thinking that they will bring, everywhere they will go to. So the exit options as well become an important aspect of starting a strategy consulting path. If we talk about the freelancing instead, I think the biggest misconception is that people usually start freelancing because they think they can become the boss of themselves, right? Which is true, but it's also true that you need to, because you have more leeway in setting up your work style, definitely in choosing the projects you are involved in, and the clients you work with. But it's also true that you work for clients, so you need to report to them. So when you start a freelancing journey, you need to really take care about the shift from an employee mindset to an entrepreneur mindset, because then there will be other activities like business development and the ability to portray yourself and to sell yourself to potential clients that when you are an employee you don't do as much. Maybe you do, when you start a new job and you need to present your previous experiences and so on. But when you are a freelancer, you have to do it, let's say, much more often, and then there is a shift that has to happen.
Makes sense. Perfect. So, what is the most difficult point in your career journey?
I think it has been the transition from full-time employment to freelancing. So it has happened after, at the beginning, I said I worked 5 years at a strategy consulting firm. Then I worked at a travel technology firm for a year. And then it was then that the pandemic hit. So the travel industry was the worst to be operating in. And I actually was trying to look for other full-time jobs, but there were none in that period. And that's when I started, working as a freelancer, out of necessity more than out of my entrepreneurial spirit. But I started working a month here, 2 weeks there, and I realized that the strategy consulting background that I had, that rotation in multiple departments, multiple companies, had really equipped me with the skill set that allowed me to be successful as a freelancer as well. It has not been easy, especially because you enter in a stage where you need to take care about a lot of administrative tasks like setting yourself up, hiring an accountant. But once you go through that initial stage, you start to also reap the benefits, because freelancing can open up really opportunities that full-time employment would not open, or would not open at such a young age. Like in my case, I've been, working for very senior people. I've been overheading multi-million acquisition, which I'm not sure, full-time employment would allow me to do at 28, basically. So yeah, it has been an incredible journey.
That's great. I think it was a bold decision, but also a smart one because with the experience you have in the field, I think you were able to navigate the challenges that they come with it. So yeah, props to that. Now, final question. How well has this role prepared you for what you want to do next?
Well, I think that these 10 years of experience working for a mix of companies, multinational companies, strategy consulting firms, private equity firms, startups, scale-ups, has equipped me for very senior roles, which I want to pursue, where two things really happen, right? First of all, you stop doing the work, you start supervising the work and allocating the work that has to be done. And two, and this happens for the second reason, that you start deciding what is the strategic direction of a company. Once you have accumulated all this experience and advised C-suite stakeholders, you start actually developing a strategic mindset, and you want to take more charge in the direction that a company does. And hence you will, in my case, I will pursue roles where I can actually put my all my experience at the benefit of a company, and hence decide in the strategic direction that that company should take. If anyone is interested to know more about how to be more strategic at work, or if they're interested in the strategy consulting industry, or if they're interested in the transition from full-time employment to freelancing, I talk about these all the time on my social platforms. I use, LinkedIn. You can find me as Gianmarco Rizzo. On Instagram, you can find me as the business strategist with the hyphen word. And I can leave all my social media content, social media links, on this platform. So if you want to follow me on other platforms like TikTok and YouTube Shorts and X, you can do so on any platform that it's most suitable for you.